Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Spiritism Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm very happy to be hosting this talk today by Suzana Simoes, who will be talking about a new awareness for a new year. Let's all give Suzana a very warm welcome. Hi, Suzana. And
Hello, everybody.
before before she starts her presentation, allow me to introduce her. Suzana Simoes is an active worker of the Spiritist movement. Dr. Simoes spends her time between her professional work as a doctor of physical therapy, her family, and the dissemination of Spiritism. Suzana has worked as a member of the Spiritist Federation of Florida and the United States Spiritist Federation. She is one of the founders of the Conscious Living Spiritist group in Miami, where she works primarily overseeing the work in English. She is an active speaker in the US and abroad. So please take this opportunity to send your questions during the presentation using the chat window. Susanna has reserved time to address your questions and comments once she concludes her presentation. So, Susanna, it's great to have you here, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, everybody. And it's still January, so I would like to start by saying Happy New Year to everyone who is listening to this presentation. The title is A New Awareness for a New Year. And our goal here today is this is a time where many of us likes to or take advantage of the new year to set goals. Um, Quite often, part of the problem that we face is setting goals. They're not realistic, they are not possible for us to achieve. And what we intend to do today is to go over some basic principles of Spiritism with the help of the psychological view that is brought to us by the spirit Joana de Angelis in her work through the medium Divaldo Pereira Franco, to help us in setting goals that we can achieve, setting goals that will make us feel really good at the end of the year, because we're going to look back and we're going to say to ourselves, I did it. So let's get started and going to the next slide. We are going to, I just want to present this slide because we have now, as I mentioned, this series of books that constitute the psychological series of Joana de Angelis, and that really helps us to understand Kardec, the codification, Spiritism, us, the codification, helps us to understand the teaching of Jesus, the gospel. So when Kardec brought the Spiritist knowledge, it really lift the veil in many areas of the teachings of Jesus and help us to understand in psychology. You don't need to be a psychologist, but having some basic understanding of some concepts like the unconscious, for instance, and what is an unconscious really helps us to read the codification with a different mindset. So next, we will see that this is, I really wanted to put the cover of this book. Hopefully at some point will be in English. I didn't want to bring the reference without being able to cite the source. So this is actual two books that have been written by psychologists and spiritists who have the work of kind of setting the basis for individuals who want to facilitate groups um, on the psychology of Joana de Angelis and this series. So, in this book, which is a series of a psychological series of Joana de Angelis, and it's a course for facilitators. On chapter 2, we find that the encounter between psychology and spiritism is an invitation for the spiritist movement to usher in a new era marked by greater qualification and improvement in its approach to work with less repressive and imposing discourses, and more enlightening ones guided by reason as proposed by the codifier from the very beginning. So when we think about our goals and we think about spiritism and setting the goals for our spiritual journey, um, that's the place where I would like for us to work from. A place of compassion, a place of understanding, of kindness, that is achieved with a more psychological look at our reality. And the human reality is a complex reality. So many times when we approach our goals from a more religious perspective, this perspective in general has been more of a dichotomy of good and bad, lows and highs with nothing in between. And this really does not translate the complexity of who we are. And so when we are making goals, we need to take into consideration this complexity, as well as understanding what is realistic given our psychological making and where we are in our evolutionary process. So next is still from this book, now in chapter 4. It is the psychological series of Joanna de Angelis is an attempt to promote self-knowledge, demonstrating that there is no effective moral transformation without inner reflection. Otherwise, we run the risk of merely changing the appearance of things, the attitudes seen by others, without altering the internal rules that guide us. Furthermore, we are dragged by everything we are not aware of. We cannot resist the attraction of evil if it becomes autonomous because we do not recognize it within ourselves. We deny the evil we have, and thus we are carried away by it. Only when we become aware that these contents are ours and need to be endured will they have space and be integrated in the psyche. So let me take a moment here with this slide, just to highlight, go back to the parts that are already highlighted, right? So there's no effective moral transformation without inner reflection. Simply stated, we can change a behavior without having a true change in the rules that guide and that drive us internally. So many times we are um, fooled in a way by our ability to behave differently, and we believe that we have been transformed, and that is not necessarily, and more often than not the truth, because inner transformation is about a deep change in the rules that drive the behavior. So if there is a change external that's not connected to the internal, it's not a real change. So that's what she mentions about altering the internal rules. Then she talks about the importance of seeking to be aware of who we are in totality, and that includes our talents and our achievements, as well as the presence of evil, uh, darkness, ignorance, and everything that is not love within us. Um, if we don't recognize that, that is affecting our lives, that is driving our behaviors, and we cannot change because we are not aware that it's even there. So moving forward, um, I want to just highlight, because sometimes people get a little concerned that Joanna and Kardec the same thing. Is this a spiritist approach? And by all means, because as we will see in the next slide, the pillars of her work are exactly the same of spiritism. So next, we will see that her entire work is built on the idea of God, immortality, mediumship, reincarnation, and plurality of inhabited worlds, which is the topic that we are going to focus on today. So next, we will see that an important step in the process of setting goals is to understand um, who you are, where you are, and identifying for the present moment, what are your needs, what is your emotional reality, what are your legitimate aspirations, and observe your daily reactions. So if you have not yet set your goals for the new year, I would say this is a good place. Take some moments and just think about a little bit. What is it that you need at the moment, right? What are the emotions and sentiments and feelings that prevail in your day to day? What do you aspire? Most important, yourself, your spirit. But perhaps one of the most important things for us to do is to observe our reactions. Um, Not so much our actions, but our reactions. Our reactions are the one who truly speak about where we stand in our evolutionary level. Because I can act moved by interest, I can act moved by fear. I can choose, for example, not to scream because if I scream, I'm going to go to a bad place in the spiritual realm. So I'm curbing my behavior. But when I am faced with a big challenge, am I able, and I don't have the time to think, then my true nature is going to be revealed. And that's that's the most powerful thing that we have if we are truly willing to take an honest look at where we are in our evolution. So that's the starting point. Now, next, let's look at the topic of today, which is plurality of worlds, that we can also think from the perspective of the different states of consciousness. So we have different worlds, we have different realms where spirits inhabit, and they are characterized by different levels of consciousness, of awareness, which can also be understood as different levels of understanding of the truth or our relation with God. Now, why is this so important? Because this state of consciousness determines where we are in our evolutionary state, but also knowing where you are, knowing what characterizes your state of consciousness, you can now establish goals that are possible again to be achievable at the present moment. We can have long term goals, but I'm talking about goals for today, right? So my long term goal is to be a pure spirit, but it's not possible to be a pure spirit in the present moment. So the question is, what is possible? What is reasonable? Next. So let's get back to some basics to help us think moving forward. We're taking a step back here. If you're not familiar with these concepts, going back to the very basis of this chapter in the Gospel and the Spirits book. So when we look at the primitive worlds, we are looking at worlds where the spirits have no understanding of God, no distinction. They cannot distinguish between good and evil, and no understanding of the law. On the other end of it, we have the pure worlds where there's then a full understanding of God, full ability to manifest God, just like Jesus manifested when he was among us and he said, I and the Father are one. It's that state of deep connection, deep understanding, and again, ability to manifest the laws in our day-to-day interactions. Next, we're going to see that the evolutionary process, there are, how do we evolve? That's the question. How do we evolve? So Joanna de Angelis in the book, In Search of the Truth, she defines God as the truth. You see here truth with capital T. And I really want to call your attention to question 115 of the Spirit's book, because in this question, in the answer more precisely, the Spirits will tell Kardec that spirits progress towards perfection through the knowledge of the truth. Um, Many of us have studied the Spirit's book. Many of us have read this question and this answer one more time. And many of us continue to think that we evolve by doing things. I'm going to evolve because I'm studying. I'm going to evolve because I'm doing charity. I'm going to evolve because, I'm going to work extra. I'm going to go to the center 10 times a week. But all these things have value and have place. But if you want to evolve, not Suzana saying, the spirits have said to Allan Kardec, the evolution comes from the knowledge of the truth. So know the truth and connect with the truth, which is God, which is the laws. But you can think of truth as the laws, and you can think of truth as your personal truth. So you can't evolve without the knowledge of truth with capital T and with a small t. Your unique personal truth. Knowledge of the truth is the path for evolution. So let's keep that in mind as we move to the next slide. And we are going to see here different levels of consciousness. So again, I talk about the primitive worlds and the pures, but what is in between? You have worlds of trials and expiations, where we are right now, where evil prevails. You have regeneration, which is a transition from the prevalence of evil to the prevalence of good. You have happy, where good prevails. So these are the different levels of consciousness that we see. Next. I really, really like this slide. I think this is a key one for our goal setting, which is let's think about these different levels of consciousness in this way. Um, when we are talking about a pure spirit, think of a pure spirit as a spirit who has graduated um, and is now able to serve life. So has gone through the school, has done graduation courses, and with that has acquired the qualities, the skills, and the knowledge to serve life. So I finished my course, I graduated, I have my PhD, I have all my set of skills, I'm ready to serve. Anybody else below that, right, is a student. So what do students do? Students go to internships. What is it? What is an internship? An internship is an opportunity to serve while learning. So you're not fully ready to serve in the internship itself, although you're there doing something good for somebody else, but that somebody else serves, that whole set of circumstance serves for you, is for your goodness, is for your learning, is for your growth. So when we think of ourselves in terms of evolution and levels of consciousness, this is where we are. We are serving, and as we are serving, we are learning, we are growing. So let's keep this perspective as we move forward to the next slide. This is a reminder, it's a tough one. I'm going to start kind of, helping us to understand where we are. So in question 188, the comment by Allan Kardec says that according to some spirits, of all the globes that comprise our solar system, the Earth is one of those whose inhabitants are the least physically and morally advanced. Okay? So this characterizes our humanity. And again, going back to the beginning, we are looking at the pillars of Spiritism, the basic concepts of Spiritism that can help us understand where we are, help us humbling ourselves, help us putting our feet down on earth so that we can set goals that are achievable in line with our stage of evolution, and avoid a number of problems that comes from setting goals that are not realistic and not achievable. So that is our human condition. Next. And in the Gospel, chapter 3, item 17, is talking about the transition between worlds of expiations and worlds of bliss. And it says, on such worlds, humans are still subject to the laws that govern matter. Their humanity still experiences your sensations and desires. Here, folks, we're talking about the next level. not trials and expiations, but the transition. On those worlds, humans are still fallible, and the spirit of evil has not completely lost its empire. So let's take a pause here, because I think a goal setting for many of us is I want to be good. And I don't mean to kind of, you know, distress you in this Saturday morning if you are following us right now, but that is not possible at this moment to think of yourself as being good, because we are in a world where evil prevails. And we would need many lectures and to go over the evil part, but evil in the sense of the biggest evil that we have is selfishness, which is at the root of everything. And when we think of selfishness, we think of self-centeredness. And basically in the Spirit's book, we learned that there's nothing that we do, no good that we do on this earth, that is not connected to some level of self-interest. And the spirits will tell us that self-interest in our planet is so rare that when we actually see it, we consider that individual to be a saint. So think of evil from this perspective. And so this is where we are. And in the transition, according to the spirits, the spirit of evil has not yet completely lost its empire. So what's the difference between the evil that we experience now and the evil as we transition? Is that right now in trials and expiations, we are characterized by humanity that evil is present, but we are unconscious of the presence of this evil. So many people listening to this, myself included, knows that selfishness is at the bottom of everything. Allan Kardec will say over and over that no matter what it is, if you want to treat, if you want to heal, if you want to grow, you need to identify where is selfishness beneath the behavior. And if I would ask you to identify selfishness in your day-to-day, in every single of your interactions, or to tell me how is selfishness manifested in your life, we would need to go on vacation, take some months to reflect on that, because we are not aware of that. And that is why we are in this world where pain and suffering still prevails. In the transition worlds, the evil still has its empire, but the level of consciousness is much greater. And with the greater consciousness, there's also greater opportunity. And so we are warming up towards setting our goals for this year. Next slide. I want to take a moment to read this slide here with you, because this is from the Gospel according to Spiritism, and this is a passage that many of us who have been studying Spiritism is very aware. And so this is a moment of consciousness in our lecture where I want to give you that to take with you after listening to this lecture, and incorporate as an exercise if you want in the beginning of the year to increase consciousness and awareness. So in the gospel we read, one would form a very erroneous idea of the inhabitants of a large city if they were judged by the populace of its infamous and sordid quarters. In a hospital, one sees only the sick and maimed. In a penitentiary, one sees all sorts of turpitudes and vices in one place. In unhealthy regions, most of the inhabitants are pale, weak, and sickly. Well, then, imagine the earth as being a sordid district, a hospital, a penitentiary, and an unhealthy region, because it is all of those at once. You will understand why affliction outweighs joys. This happens because one does not send healthy persons to a hospital, or those who have practiced no evil to houses of correction, nor can hospitals or houses of correction be places of delight. All right, so again, we have read this many times. And more often than not, where our thought goes is, wow, yeah, indeed, we live in a very, very dysfunctional world. And I can see that the sickness, I can see the rebelliousness, I can see the weak, the pale, the disgruntled, and yeah, it all makes sense. Now, in the next slide, I would like to um, ask you to actually read this again on your own and then ask yourself, where in me is the illness? Where in me is the rebelliousness? Where in me is the characteristics that keep me in this very sordid district where I live in? This text is not to be read and to be thought of anybody other than yourself. So, to begin, we need to understand that Earth is all of that. So, the spirits are not telling that we are in a hospital alone. This planet where we inhabit is all of that, meaning that all of us who are here are sick, are in a prison or a sordid district. So, the beginning would be to humble ourselves, step down from this place that the ego places us, that makes us often think that we are so much more than we actually are. And stepping down, start to reflect on our illnesses, our rebelliousness, because we see people who are rebelliousness, who are corrupt, who are, with a, we can list a number of passions, and we must ask ourselves very, very honestly, how is it that we're different than they are? Because we are also corrupted. We are also, we can be hostile, aggressive, and so forth. So we need to really to start changing how we approach what we read and take the time to do a serious analysis and be able to identify the presence of these characteristics within ourselves. Next. So our level of evolution helps us to understand where we stand. Thankfully, we have passed by this more primitive phase of dinosaurs, although sometimes we still behave as dinosaurs. But the the understanding, right, of where we stand is important, so we can again establish appropriate expectations, and in doing that, we prevent the use of masks of what Jesus combated so much, which was hypocrisy, right, pretending to be what we are truly not. And I put here prevention of mental disorders because, you know, it's very concerning that we place such unrealistic expectations on ourselves in terms of our moral progress. And then these push for goodness, for enlightenment, for elevation, with total disregard and disrespect to the very principles that we read and study, including the understanding of the pace of evolution. So we read Kardec, but we don't understand Kardec. We read Kardec, but we don't integrate the concepts in a more deep level to help us to really set something that will not break us mentally, because we are filled with guilt and self hatred and disappointment and frustrations because we cannot be what we established for ourselves as our goals. Um, so, having realistic goals, really understanding these principles and the reality and the levels of consciousness and the pace of progression helps us to be kind with ourselves, realistic. And in doing that, we can also be better brothers and sisters, because it will help us to understand that we are all in the same boat here. We are all interns in this big hospital. And the same way that we shouldn't be setting unrealistic expectations for ourselves, we have to do the same with others. Next. So let's look then at, with those concepts in mind, let's look then at what is possible as we are transitioning from a world where evil prevails to a world where evil has not lost its empire. Next. So think of a patient, right? So we have options. We can be that patient, and we all have known someone like this. Maybe we are that type of patient that does not recognize the illness, does not follow the treatment, refuses medications. I mean, being a therapist and working with patients, they're patients that rather consult Dr. Google. They become doctors suddenly themselves. They know best what is for them to do, what is the treatment. We can also be the type of prisoner that denies the crime and justifies the behavior and rebels against the sentence. Many times, if you study Spiritism for a little while, you are more open to the sentences in the sense of the consequences, right? And the law that is in place to help us to grow, to help us to rehabilitate ourselves. But we're pretty good at justifying our behaviors. But the circumstances were tough. But she did this. But he said that, and we go on. We have a list of the reasons why we behave in a certain way, when the only reason is because we are still in a level of unawareness, and it has nothing to do with what's happening outside of us and everything to do with where we stand. Next. So that previous slide talks about the state of moral blindness, where we unable or refuse to recognize our place of evolution, or we are in la la land, right? We're deceived by the outer layer of our good behaviors. Yeah, I do charity. Yeah, at the center, I call everybody my brother, my sister. When someone is mean to me, I do not yell. And then, we are convinced of our goodness because of our good behaviors. And we're acting like the whitewashed tombs that Jesus referred to. Next. So what's possible is be open to all these things that I'm talking about. There's no shame in being a child. There's no shame in ignorance. Actually, humanity is divine, is part of God's plan. So understand that nothing that we do, no bad behavior, no uh, evil takes away our value and our worth as a child of God. So, with that in mind, ask questions, listen, follow instructions, do our best each day, seek to look and to understand the root of the behavior. And in doing that, we become open in the spirit, because otherwise, the spirit's not sensitive to the instructions of the superior spirits. If we don't recognize that there is work to be done, we are closed. We close the window for this assistance from the spiritual realm. Next. So let's take one example. I always like to give examples, so we leave the talks with something a little bit more concrete to take home. Think of a criticism. Who likes to be criticized? It's very difficult to receive a criticism for someone, and for us in our stage of awareness and evolution to say, thank you so much. I appreciate so much you saying this to me. I'm delighted that you gave me this feedback. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to work on it. I'm excited about this new perspective that you're presenting me. Usually we cringe, we tighten up, our hearts race, but our pride speaks up. So you have two options here: pride without knowledge of the truth. So because you're civilized and because you know that in the gospel says that you shouldn't scream, you shouldn't be hostile, then you respond with a polished behavior and remain unaware of your inner reality. You believe that because you are polite, you're good. Now, pride with knowledge of the truth means you are polished, but with awareness of everything that's going on within you. So you say to yourself, I am proud, and my response hides my wounded pride. The discomfort I feel signs my imperfection and indicates that I am the problem that needs to be addressed. And then you have now a renewed reaction, because with the awareness, not only you did not yell, but you're going to stop doing things that are very, very harmful to relating. You will not project, you will not criticize back, you will not diminish the other, you will not assign responsibility to the other. You take it home, it's yours. So let me tell you something. This is a possible goal. Understand that you didn't become good, not yet, because there is much healing and much awareness to be achieved. But this is a possible goal: the goal of understanding the presence of evil in me, the goal of taming my tendencies, and the goal of owning what is mine and committing to continue the work forward. This is possible. And this in itself can make a huge change in the nature of our relating and in the quality of our living. Next. And the therapeutic effect is that you understand that you are no one to judge and no one to counsel anyone. So if you're listening to this and you are someone who does, for example, fraternal counseling at the centers, please do not give any personal advice, because you are in no conditions to do so. When we are doing fraternal counseling, we should always be referring to the advice of the ones who can advise, which are the good spirits. Let's look at what Kardec says. Let's look what Jesus says, because those are the ones who are in place to give anyone any advice. Next. All right, so I'm going to end with a quick reflection, a quick story here for us. And that starts with this question: why do people still live in war, conflict, despite preaching peace and love? So we could ask that ourselves. I mean, many of us are working, we participate in peaceful movements, we talk about this in our lectures, and yet we live in war and in conflict. We may not be holding weapons, but yeah, our words, our thoughts can be very sharp and strong weapons that we use in our relating. Next. So it's an experiment. So this question was asked by a man who asked his master, and the master said, I'm going to, let's do an experiment. Every person who passes, I want you to slap that person on the face. So there are several levels of consciousness. So the first person who passed received the slap. They received the slap, retaliated with a barrage of punches. The man fell to the ground because of the unexpected attack. Now, I'm going to read the seven levels of consciousness. And before I go on, I should say, just imagine you walking and someone slaps you in the face. What would you do? So would you be at the level 1, where you would retaliate with a barrage of punches? I hope not. The second one got scared. Look at the man from head to toe, and without saying anything, retaliated with an even stronger slap. Maybe. The third man reacted, demanding an explanation, threatening to respond with a beating as well. They explained the experiment to the man, but he didn't accept it and reacted by criticizing the situation. So that was level 3. Let's look at level 4. The fourth man reacted by questioning why they did this, wondering if he had done something to deserve it, seeking to understand the motivation. They then commented on the experiment. He thanked them for the lesson, but explained that many might not understand their actions. The fifth man received the slap and said, "My son, I truly deserve it for not recognizing sooner that you were in need of help. How can I be of service?" The aggressor was left confused. The man continued, "Every act of aggression is a cry for help. How can I help you?" Let's stop here for a second. Go back, please. So, um, wow, right? So, some of us might have this consciousness, but the question, remember when I said, look at your reactions. If you are attending someone in a spiritual center who is aggressive towards you, you will prepare to behave in a certain way. But when that happens at home, with people who are close to you in unexpected ways, can you bring this awareness to the moment? Or are you still behaving on the instinctive ways that we talk about in the 3 other levels of consciousness? So that's only level 4. Let's see level 5. Level 6. The sixth man, however, dodged the action and questioned, "My dear son, why do you want to hurt yourself? Haven't you yet learned that by hurting others, you are hurting yourself? Haven't you learned that each one of us is part of a unique organism and that each one of us is a cell of this vast organism?" So, sixth level, another level of awareness, right? So, let's go to the next. So, just quickly before we go to the last level, on the first level, right, the guy beat the other one down to the ground, very instinctive, no thinking. Hopefully, we're not there. On the second one, he did a superficial analysis. He measured the guy up and down. And perhaps if the guy was smaller, he slapped stronger. If he was bigger, he would seek revenge later in some different way. Sometimes we still do that. On the third level, he analyzed the situation but provide no solution. Sometimes that's where we are. On the fourth level, there's a little bit more of awareness kicking in here, right? Have I done something wrong? So that's when we start to understand that we are an inherent part of the problem, right? But again, very, very difficult on more intimate situations for this level of consciousness to emerge on the go. On the next one, he understands that humanity is an infantile stage and is not yet capable of acting appropriately. Again, sometimes we are able to. I changed the color here because we're merging. Like the red ones are the ones where we stand mostly. These one here is, yeah, we know that intellectually, but again, very difficult, not yet integrated in our awareness on a day-to-day, not yet part of our internal rules. It's in our awareness at a very shallow level. On the sixth level, a higher state of consciousness within the loving unity that constitutes reality. He has discovered the beginning of the truth, but does not yet know it's in its entirety. So this is the man who asks, "Why are you hurting yourself?" So it is the level of consciousness when you say, "All right, you're doing this to me, but why are you being so unloving to yourself?" So you understand that by being hostile and aggressive, you were the first one who was being hurt. Again, we know that, but we're not able yet to enact that in our day-to-day situations. But you might be wondering, just like I was, wow, what is the seventh level? Let's look at it. What happens with the seventh man? When the aggressor tried to hit him, their gazes met, and a kind of electric shock coursed through his entire body. a sensation mixed with love, compassion, selfless friendship, understanding, profound knowledge of everything related to life, and an overwhelming feeling of extreme security fill his being. The master insisted that he strike him, but all he could say was, I can't, I won't. Your mere presence is enough for me to understand the futility of aggression. I would rather slap myself, never knew. So, this is the level of Christ, of missionaries that embody so deeply and so profoundly the law of love that they have what the spirits are going to refer at as the true moral ascendancy over others. Love is the most powerful force of the universe. So when you are pure love and love overflows from your being, love paralyzes evil. Love overrules, and evil becomes impotent, powerless in face of so much love, such a big embrace, such a sense of safety and a sense of security. So this, my dear friends, is not the goal for this year. This is our long-term goal. We, if you have an opportunity, go back to these levels. Go back to the example of criticism. Go back and do your analysis. Think, start your year thinking and try to identify, the illnesses, the rebelliousness. When, you're in a conflict, you tell yourself, I know I need to do this way, but I can't, but I won't, but I refuse, right? Look at that. That's your beginning point. And then look at your reactions. That is going to guide you, right? And then please be super kind to yourself, right? Take these examples and set goals that you can achieve so that at the end of the year, when you look back, you're going to say, my goodness, this year I really grew because you know what? I did less harm. I was able to better tame my tendencies. I understand that I'm not good yet, and that's okay. That's where I am. But I am a true spiritist because I'm in the effort to tame my tendencies, and I'm the effort to do my inner transformation by seeking, looking, honestly admitting and embracing my personal truth. And with that, with those thoughts and with these feelings, we go to the last slide. And I wish you all a happy new awareness and a happy new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzana, for the reflections you provided. Please stay with us for the Q&A session, which will happen shortly after some brief announcements. A virtual course, Introduction to Mediumship, a free virtual course for beginners. The U.S. Spiritist Federation is thrilled to invite individuals eager to explore the realm of spirit communication according to Spiritism. Check out the new course at learn.spiritist.us or scan the QR code on the flyer. Next, podcast-like series, Psychology and Spirituality, A Bridge to a Better Life, based on the works by Joanna de Angelis. A new episode every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Available on YouTube and Spotify. Third, a new book, Transcendence, Life in the Hereafter by Jasada Korngold. Are you curious about what lies beyond the veil of death? Join us on a profound journey of exploration as we delve into the mysteries of the afterlife with Transcendence, Life in the Hereafter. Available at spiritistbooks.us. The Spiritist app, Be My Hope, is available now on the App Store or Google Play. This app offers uplifting content in a collection of videos, daily messages, and audio materials Download it now. Number 5. Now available are 7 free professionally recorded Spiritist audiobooks sponsored and produced by the Spiritist Society of the Carolinas. At your own pace, listen to Allan Kardec's foundational works on YouTube at Spiritist Society of Carolinas. And finally, on the screen, please note there is a QR code. If you want to help the USSF produce more publications and promote Spiritism to everyone, scan the QR code on screen for your donation. Okay, we will now focus on your questions and comments. So let's see what we have here. Okay, this is from Benifer Romantico. Did you study about vision to see spirits? Okay, let me try to rephrase this a little bit. If we start to study Spiritism, what do you think is the main purpose in doing that? Is it to try to see spirits or something else?
Well, the main I see the main study of the main purpose of studying spiritism as understanding our spiritual nature.
Mhm.
We have in mediumship many evidence of the spiritual life. There is um, um, many the medium's book. It's an incredible guide about studying the spirits, the connections. In the spirits book, there is an entire part that talk about the spirit's life. So there's those are all elements. I'm hearing a little echo of myself. Those are a lot of elements that help us to get to the gist of what Spiritism is about, which is understanding the essence of our life so that it can be a life with purpose, um, and in line with our evolution and the goals for our humanity.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is from Yasko Arakawa. Hi, Yasko.
Hi, Yasko.
Hi, Susanna. Hi, Susanna. Great material. I feel we use excessively the word but in our relationships, denoting defensiveness, perhaps unwillingness to accept others' divergent remark, opinion. How to start to substitute these buts in our reactions? Thanks.
I think one of the things that helps us with that is curiosity. We usually dialogue with one another from a place of certainty and truth, with absolutely no openness to understand a different perspective. We dialogue to win. We don't dialogue to actually listen to a different perspective, and that's part of the evil in us. And I'm gonna, my evil is always like, evil. I mean, it's part of this self-centeredness, right? It's part of this infantile belief that we know the truth and that our truth is the absolute truth. So, but I think curiosity is like when you listen to something that is different than yours, you might have a reaction within yourself, which is like your instinctive self trying to protect your truth. And you can you can acknowledge that. You can see, oh man, I'm tightening it up here, right? So what's happening? So bring curiosity. Can you please explain to me a little bit more of where you're coming from, right? Can you ask questions, because a lot of times that will help. I always remember a colleague of mine that I work with, and she has very different visions than me, political visions. And one day I asked her, "But how can you think that?" And then she started to share with me a little bit of her life experience and the traumas that she had underwent with immigration and her family and the fears. And that really, I continue to think very differently than her, but that gave me a very different perspective, because now, although we thought differently, I could understand where she was coming from because I was curious, you know, and that helps in the relating. You become more understanding. You understand that none of us has the truth, and the truth will take time because we are growing. So I think curiosity is something that we need to cultivate a little bit more, and that can help with that.
Very important points. Yes. Okay, next question from Benefer Romantico. How can you identify the evil spirit if you can't see a spirit?
Yes,
So,
there's, yeah, I got it. There's no need um, to identify the spirit per se, right? So we have thoughts. Um, some of the thoughts are ours. Some of the thoughts are suggested to us. In the spirits book, the spirits will tell Allan Kardec that it really doesn't matter for us not to waste time trying to identify the source of the thoughts. We should be spending time identifying the nature and the quality of the thought, regardless of where it comes from, whether it's ours or someone else. What does that say about us? Because evil, the word evil, or, errors, um, or passions, um, they are just the surface of our vulnerabilities, of our human frailty. Someone, for instance, who is very, sometimes, I'll give an example, someone who is very aggressive, that can be very hostile, often is someone who deep inside feels very small, and when criticized feels deeply humiliated. So the violent behavior, the evil behavior, is just a way in which that ego, that is so incredibly vulnerable, is protecting itself. And in anger and rage, one is big. So it gives you a sensation of being big, of being under control. But again, the answering the question, we should worry less about uh, seeing or determining, and really, and that's why the whole talk brings a little bit more of a psychological perspective. Because if we stay on the realm of judgment, this is good, this is bad, it really does not take us anywhere. But if we are curious about what is driving that behavior, a little bit of the psychology underneath the behavior, then we really have a much better chance for transformation, and also for connection, for empathy, for compassion, and for healing.
thank you. And certainly, as you said before, Spiritism is about personal improvement. So, one can be a very active Spiritist and not see spirits at all. It's a
Yes,
particular type of
absolutely.
mediumship that most of us don't have, I think.
Hmm.
Okay, next question. This is from Daniel Santos. Hi, Daniel. How can we cultivate genuine awareness in a world saturated with misinformation, where even our most trusted sources can be manipulated or flawed?
There is one source that is never flawed or manipulated. It's called God within. Um, and we tend to look for God outside of us. Um, we tend to seek God. Um, but what I think it's more effective these days is if, instead of seeking God outwards, if we turn into the God that is within each one of us, because God is the first cause, is the first cause of your existence, is the first cause of your being. God is within you. That level of goodness, that potential for love, that potential for moral behavior, ethical moral behavior, an altruistic way of living, all that is within you. So that cannot be corrupted by anything outside, is untouchable, is unchangeable, and it is available. Now, it does take from our part the ability to move. We have to turn towards. So, what I would say is in the world that we live today, yes, um, things are corrupted, information is corrupted. We have always to turn towards the God within, towards the voice of our consciousness, towards the love that defines our essence, and towards the reference, the highest reference that has been given to us, and ask, you know, if Jesus was here, what he would do, how would he behave, and use that as a reference. If you need to seek for someone outside, I would say that's it. But I think that in a world that is pulling us outwards, we really need to do um, we need to get better at turning inwards because God is in us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, next question from Bennifer Romantico. Do you study about your past life?
All
Okay.
the time, all the time, because my past life is manifesting in my daily life. You don't need to go back. You can. There are reasons, there are moments and possibilities, but you truly don't need to. You have plenty in the present moment that is manifesting as a result of the past. So your tendencies, what you are attracted to, who you attract to, the behaviors that tend um, to be present in all your relationships. Sometimes people change places, they change relationships. The problem, the nature of the problems remains absolutely the same because it has nothing to do what is outside other than you continue to attract the same problems in the same type of people. They're matching your inner needs and your inner condition. So that's where self knowledge and knowledge of the truth is so incredibly powerful. So in our unconscious, and we have this image by Jung where the unconscious is an ocean and our consciousness is a cork. So what we know about yourself is that little cork, but our being, the entirety of our being, including our past experiences and our past lives, the learnings, the mistakes, everything lies in this huge ocean that is actually dictating the direction that the little cork is moving without the little cork having awareness, having knowledge. But what we can do is have a conscious life. And a conscious life goes uh, kind of connects well with current concepts of mindfulness, of or Jesus watching, pray, watch yourself, go to your reactions, right? So I personally think that sticking to the present moment for me is already overwhelming. There is so much evidence and so much indications of what needs to be looked at and taken care of, and it's here. The past is present, more present than you care to know, more present than you actually know.
Okay. If I may just add to that question slightly, can you clarify a little bit, Susanna, whether or not Spiritism advocates past life regression? I think from what you said, it doesn't, but just a couple thoughts on what Spiritism says about past life regression.
Science is an arm of God on earth. We have spiritists, psychologists, or psychologists who are not spiritists, who does use techniques such as hypnosis, also past lives to treat traumatic events. Um, and and I see that as a sign of God's mercifulness, because again, science is here to easy and to better our lives. Side to side with that, we also know that we have the forgetfulness of the past for reason. Again, it's very overwhelming for our psychic to deal with all the issues of our present life. Um, and I always joke, as a physical therapist, I'll never be out of job. People always are going to be have back pain because of our inability to manage the present moment, the weight, the difficulties we put in our unconscious, we put in our back, which is the trash can of our body, and we'll have neck ache, backache. So this shows the difficulties in managing the trials of today. Now imagine if we have available to us the conflicts, the situations, the ways in which we harm others or were harmed by others, all that available to us. We would succumb. I don't think we would be able to withstand the burden of these experiences. So there is a reason for that. So I'm not going to say yay 100%, nay 100%. It needs to be done with criteria, with understanding, and by professionals who are definitely qualified to help you in the process and to guide you safely.
Okay, thank you. Very important points. All right. Do we have time for one more question?
Sure.
Oh, this is from the International Spiritist Council. Can you think of one or two ways in which our ego can help or distort our efforts for a greater awareness?
Well, like I said, the ego, um, in our level of consciousness of humanity, right? We have this need to be seen, to be good, to be loved, to be embraced, to be accepted. Those are human needs. Those we all have that, right? Um, so a lot of times there was actually a slide that I removed because I thought it was too much. But the slide said, "Is behavior a good thermometer for our evolution?" And the answer is no, because behind our behavior, for example, um, I want to be good. Why do you want to be good? Why do you want to be good? Oh, I want to be good because if I'm good, people are going to like me. If I'm good, people are going to accept me. If I'm good, people are going to keep me in that group. Because if I'm good, I am going to go to a good place in the spiritual realm, or I'm not going to the lower zones, the umbral. So we are being good either because we are seeking a place for ourselves. We are being good because we have an interest in our condition in the spiritual realm. There are many reasons why we want to be good. So, so the ego is going to believe that that behavior is a manifestation of your goodness. But when you're good, there's no reason for your goodness. There's no underlying reason for your goodness. When you think of Mother Teresa and other people, they were not they didn't have an accountability. How many more hours do I need to work to rent a place in Astro City? No, no. There was no fear in their behavior. They were being good because it's in their nature. Um, so the ego is always trying uh, to mask the reality. It's very easy to believe that we are more than we actually are, based on behaviors. So I think behaviors without awareness are a good way to disguise and to kind of compromise our path. And I think the ego does that. Perfectionism. So I do everything. I was personally thinking another day about um, discipline. I'm very disciplined, and like at work, I'm very successful because I have an incredible level of discipline. I have an incredible level of organization. I control things very well, and then suddenly I'm in a life situation where my discipline serves me for nothing, and control is gone. So I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I realized that how many times have I seen myself and thought of myself as superior for being so disciplined, so organized. And now life is really, really pull the ground from underneath my feet. And I'm like, hey, look at you. You have no control, and discipline, which you used to think as a virtue, is really not a virtue, because discipline can be used, evil can be very disciplined, right? So don't get confused here, and don't get confused about where you truly stand. So I always like to also give a little bit of examples, because I try to do the things that I talk about and exercise my own speech.
Alas, the way we react to the unexpected is often a huge test. So,
Absolutely. Yes.
okay, thank you, Susanna, and thank you everyone who joined us live for today's talk. We appreciate everybody who follows our weekly Spiritism Talk series. Next Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, don't miss our next live with Marcia Trajano, who will be discussing paths of spiritual evolution. Susanna, before we conclude, can you do a final prayer for us, please?
Sure. Dear Father, it's with gratitude that we end our program today, asking guidance for our lives, for our days as we move forward, to turn towards you, to connect with the truth, to be honest and humble, loving and compassionate towards ourselves. But most importantly, may this year be a year that is characterized by our renewed commitment to do the inner work, to study, to learn, to integrate, and to manifest the God that we all are. We ask you for the world, especially for our brothers and sisters who are in darkness, and help each one of us to move forward, taking one step at a time with more and more awareness, with more and more love, today and always. Thank you, and so be it.